Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Eddie Austin podcast. Today, I have Steve from NuView Trust. So Steve and I have met several times, but we met at Peak Partnership officially. I met Lisa last year at Best Ever Conference in Colorado. Got to learn a little bit about the company. I was interested from that point forward. And then at Peak Partnership, we got to officially meet and talk about our alignment and how much we care about other people and helping other people and how that's a passion for us. And then again, we got to, you had a booth at Best Ever Conference as well this year. And man, it was great. Just good time spent. And that was the trip where we kind of started manifesting this podcast, because I was telling you about, so I get to Best Ever Conference. I'm getting checked in my motel. There's some troubles in the lobby, getting a room and everything else, because there's a lot of people there. There was another conference, a lot of people. And so there's a guy sitting on the couch, and the guy says, man, I'm hoping I can get a room. I can't hardly get any space. Everybody around here is booked. There must be something going on. And I said, yeah, it's probably the real estate conference. Is that why you're here? I said, yeah, it is. Okay. Well, so what's that look like? And I said, well, I take, I have a fund manager. We build and create real estate funds. We raise private equity. We raise money from, 401ks, IRAs, self-directed stuff. He goes, I got an IRA. I said, do you? I said, do you have it invested? No. He said, hell, I got $300,000 in my IRA. I said, you have $300,000 in your IRA and you don't have it invested? No, I'm a little afraid of the market. And I said, man, you've got to get that in the real estate industry, man. There's so many ways you can do that. Yeah, I'm just not sure, And he goes, yeah, but, I probably can't get in something like your group. And no, if you have $10,000, man, you that's the thing. It doesn't matter where you start as long as you start. And I think everybody gets it twisted up. So today I'm super excited about this podcast because I'll let you take it away, Steve, kind of reiterate things, and then we'll get into some questions after that.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you, Eddie. Again, pleasure to know you. Pleasure to get to meet you finally in person at Peak Partnership, and then again at Best Ever, the time that we spent there, kind of really talking about our alignment, as you mentioned, and formulating the ideas for this podcast. We've talked about it a lot before. Our stories really align. Service to others is super important to us here at NuView Trust, and bringing awareness to building wealth through real estate, lowering the burden of taxes and everything that comes with that. So again, excited to be speaking to your tribe about real estate, and more specifically self-directed retirements and how to invest in real estate through a self-directed retirement account. I'm the director of Syndication Solutions here for NuView Trust Company. NuView Trust is a passive IRA custodian. We've been in business for 20 years, helping clients invest in alternative assets outside of the stock market, diversifying their portfolio and investing tax-free and tax-deferred. So again, excited to be here and kind of talk to your audience a little bit more about what we do.
Man, this is great. It's like I said, I woke up straight out of bed this morning, no alarm needed, straight to the gym, cold plunge shower, just checking all the boxes before I got here because I was just wound tight about doing this. And, the other day I had another guy that knows what we do. He was talking to his boss, and his boss was saying that he's got $1.5 million in a 401k fund, and he's just not making a whole lot of money, and he's really afraid of losing money. So that raised a lot of questions, and we talked about this out at Salt Lake City as how does that work? How do people actually take a 401k? There's certain things that we got to check off. So you sent me a list here. I'm going to read off and we can go through it. So we're going to pretend I'm that 401k guy. I've got, $1.5 million in the account, and I'm a little bit afraid about investing in stock bonds and mutual funds, and I want an alternative. And one of the alternatives that you guys offer is, real estate and being able to invest in companies like mine. So, first off, I can go through my background, but I think everybody knows about my background on the podcast. Anything you need to know about Steve, by all means, look him up, look up NuView Trust Company. Let's get right into this because this is important information. So, we got here. Give me an overview of an SDIRA.
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, before I kind of dive into that, if you would indulge me, I'd like to tell a little story to your audience, really about how I kind of, got acquainted with NuView and, kind of transitioned in that space. So I was very fortunate to have a very financially minded, father. Who set up a Roth IRA for me well before I was 18. Made contributions to that Roth IRA, and on my 18th birthday, had a Roth IRA that was worth $15,000 to me. Of course, as a naive 18-year-old, had no idea what to do with it. But that was one of the challenges of, learning how to, manage my own finances and, really being in charge, of my own personal endeavors. And so, just like anybody else, I went the safe and traditional route, put index my money, put it in S&P funds and stocks, bonds, and everything else. And, try to diversify as much as possible, but following that 60-40 allocation that's so traditional, right? And didn't really think much else, right? Let it grow in the market. I've got a long time to let it grow, and didn't really think much of it. Fast forward a couple of years after that, I was doing some research on how to diversify my portfolio a little bit further, and I had come across an article about investing in real estate with my IRA. And, I read a little bit about it, but, not being, super aware and super familiar with the nuance of everything. I didn't think much of it. Honestly, being a young adult, I thought it was a scam.
Well, a lot of people do. When I'm out here telling people about what I do, they're like, you take people's money and you invest it in real estate.
Right. How do you do that? And so, yeah, I mean, so anyway, I thought nothing of it, kind of stored it in the back of my mind and put it in the archives, so to speak. And anyway, fast forward a few years, I went through school, graduated college, and shortly after graduation, I had a baby boy, Steve Jr. But that also left me with the circumstance of finding a new place to live, a little bit away from the college, somewhere better to raise a family. And so I started looking around, and unfortunately at the time, there really wasn't much available. But I was very fortunate to get connected with a gentleman at my church who happened to be a real estate investor and a landlord in the area, and he had a condo available. Well, went to view the condo. It was in a beautiful area. It was a perfect spot to, start my little family. And so decided to move forward with that process. And so anyway, we sat down. He started explaining that, these are the conditions of the lease. He gave me the lease to sign. He told me that I would be signing my rent checks to NuView Trust and out to his IRA. And so, that light bulb kind of went off in my head. That article that I had read all those years ago, somebody was sitting here in the flesh, in person, now talking about what I had read about, right? And so now there was something a little bit more real, a little bit more tangible, and somebody who was a wealth of knowledge. I mean, the gentleman spent 40 years on Wall Street and just really a powerhouse of knowledge, and a great guy to learn from. So sat down, kind of picked his brain a little bit more. He started talking a little bit about, NuView and what they do. The fact that he actually owned 7 condos in that same complex, all within his IRA, and, what it's been able to do to, fundamentally change his retirement. And so anyway, followed a bit of his advice and started investing my own retirement accounts in real estate options, and, have since progressed to investing as an LP in real estate syndications and, other deals. So real estate has fundamentally changed my retirement, the lives of so many of the other people that we've worked with. And so again, it's so important for us to kind of bring awareness to what we do and kind of get this out into the marketplace. And so again, I appreciate you indulging me in that story, and now I would love to tell you a little bit more about self-direction and kind of how that all comes to be.
Absolutely, man. And I'll tell you, it's so wild to me. We did a little bit of a study here a while back on one of the properties that we were looking at purchasing. It was one we already closed, so I had some real life numbers. And one of the family members of mine, he has about $40,000 left in his retirement account, and it's probably a retirement tied to his company. It's not a pension. And he had about 40,000 left, and he's in his 60s. And, I said, it might be time to really think about, I don't mean to get in your business, but maybe time to really think about what the next 10 years look like. I'm not, I can't make any promises in this game, but what I can tell you is just off basic math, I could probably take that $40,000 and in a 10-year period, which would be 2 real estate cycles, inside our opportunities, I could probably turn in into upwards of $600,000 to $700,000. He said, all 40,000. I said, all $40,000. I said, you just got to get started. And I said, because, you've got ups and downs. There's ups and downs in any investing, but when you're investing in a vehicle outside of like the S&P 500, yeah, the S&P 500's made some good numbers. But since 1972, it's not the same numbers. Since then, the dollar's deflated and those calculations have kind of changed. You don't have as many bull markets. And my biggest problem is in S&P 500, you're invested in an IP address. It's not a brick and mortar. There may be brick and mortar companies, but you're not physically invested in an asset that you know the address of. When you buy in something like what we're offering and what you're offering, you could possibly know the physical address of where your money is being held and where it's being grown.
Yeah, drive down the street. Oftentimes, the owner operator, and that's really what excites me the most about real estate and just alternative assets in general, right? The tangibility of the matter, right? Of course, you can get online, you can follow your mutual fund or your stock or your bond and watch them grow, or again, like you said, watch them, decline in value. But you can't walk in, you can't talk to the business owner, you can't, be as involved as that stakeholder, right? And you're putting up a lot of your money and you want to know that's, going to good use. And so again, one of the most exciting parts about, investing in real estate, more specifically through, an IRA.
Absolutely. So, so I guess first let's start out this way. I work for a company and I've got 1.5 million in this 401k. What can I do with that in NuView Trust?
Yeah, great question, Eddie. So self-direction really gives you the power of choice, right? Allowing you to pick your investments and invest in anything that the IRS doesn't prohibit. The IRS does not allow you to invest in life insurance and collectibles. And those are the only two things that you can invest in. Otherwise, everything else. So real estate, cryptocurrency, precious metals, you can do private lending and loan your money. All of those options are available to you in a self-directed retirement account. Self-directed retirement accounts, the investments made in those accounts need to be passive. And that's kind of where real estate comes in. Real estate, more specifically real estate syndications, can be a great way for those investors to, grow their wealth passively while not having to worry too much, get paid monthly dividends, grow their, their investment over that 5 to 7 year hold. And upon exit, make their returns at that point. The process for rolling over an existing 401k into a self-directed retirement account is super simple. So first, you would get linked up with a custodian like NuView Trust. We'd help you establish an account with us. So that way we have a bucket to receive funds to, right? We would then request those funds from wherever they're currently being custodied, whether that's Charles Schwab, Fidelity, or whoever your current plan administrator is. That process usually takes about a week or so. Once those funds are rolled over into your self-directed retirement account, it's then up to you to find an investment and place those funds into that investment. And so just to clarify, NuView's position, we are a passive custodian. So we custody the asset and we help facilitate the transactions. But we are not investment advisors, attorneys, CPAs, or otherwise. And if you do need advice from those entities, by all means, seek them out. All of our investors come to us with investments in mind and basically tell us what they want to do, and we do it for them. So they point, we shoot. So that's in essence, what a self-directed retirement account is. It allows the account holder to direct all of the activity in their account and pick from a variety of investments that aren't otherwise offered by, the large brokerage firms like Charles Schwab, Fidelity, or otherwise.
Right. So being that I'm still employed by this company and I have this 401k, so normally, if you leave the company, then you have the opportunity to roll it into something else, which would be a perfect time to roll it into NuView Trust. But being that I'm still here, but I've been in this company for 20 years, what are some options that I have to maybe picking some of that money out and putting it in NuView, still being a W-2?
Yeah, great question, Eddie. Unfortunately, 99% of the time, the plan won't allow it. If it is an active 401k plan that you are contributing to, you are currently employed, then unfortunately you cannot roll over those funds. The funds that are eligible to be rolled over from a 401k are those that are from a previous employer 401k, that otherwise is just sitting out there stale and not being used. But
Hmm.
anything that you're actively contributing to with the rest of your group would generally not be eligible to be rolled over. That
Okay.
said, I mean, IRAs, those are your individual retirement accounts. So many people have a 401k and an IRA as well. So if you have an IRA sitting out there, by all means, the process works just the same. We set up an account for you here. We request the funds transfer from wherever your IRA is currently being custodied, and then they're open for your investments here with NuView Trust. So always an option if you have an IRA and you want to use a portion of those funds to invest in any alternative assets like real estate syndications. That can be a great option as well. But yeah, any active 401ks unfortunately would not be eligible to be rolled over.
Is there probably some 401ks if you've been in the company long enough that it might be an opportunity that there's a certain portion that you have a certain amount of custodianship of or something that you could actually allocate funds to something else?
Yeah, sure thing. So it never hurts to ask your plan administrator, right, whether or not a portion of those funds can be rolled over. You may
Hmm.
be surprised to find that, yes, there is a small portion of those 401k funds that you've contributed over 10, 20, whatever your tenure is.
Hmm.
And be able to withdraw that from the account. But that would again be left up to the plan administrator and up to you to coordinate with that individual. But yeah, absolutely, it would never hurt to ask the
Yeah.
plan administrator if that's
So,
an option.
yeah, for me, I'm not exactly ready to leave the company yet, but however, um, knowing that I have some options, I may want to call up my whoever does my, you know, my financial, my custodian for that account to figure out if I can actually take some of them funds and put them somewhere else. So that is an option.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And we'll be there to help, whenever however we can in facilitating that process. But yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
contact the plan administrator. 99% of the times you can't do it, but there is always, some exceptions baked in depending on the size of the organization you work with and really what their plan allows for.
Okay. So the next question, you've pretty well covered everything, overview of SDIRAs. What restrictions do investors have on investing with an SDIRA? We've kind of covered that. What suggestions do you have for explaining an SDIRA process potentially as a limited partner?
Yeah, great question. So I kind of want to touch on that first one because I know we talked about it a little bit
Okay.
when we talked about collectibles and life insurance. I do just kind of want to expand a little bit on disqualified parties. So we talked
Okay.
about the transactions that are restricted, right? So again, investing in life insurance and investing in collectibles, but individuals can also be disqualified. You can also be disqualified from investing with particular individuals, and those individuals investing with you. So the IRS does not allow your IRA to participate in any investment activities with your lineal ascendants or descendants. So if you think about it like the trunk of a family tree, your lineal ascendants are your parents, your grandparents, their parents, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
then your lineal descendants are your children, and their children's children, right? The branches of the tree, so your uncles, cousins, sisters, brothers, whomever that is to you, those are considered the branches of the tree. Anybody that falls on that trunk, so those lineal ascendants or descendants, again, the parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, they would be a disqualified party, meaning you could not invest in any deal that they sponsor. They could not invest in a deal that you sponsor. Let's say you were acquiring a single family home with the intention to rent it. You could not rent that to your let's say I'm the person purchasing the property with the intention of renting it to my father, who just lost my mother and now needs a place to live. Might be a morbid example, so I'm sorry. But
No.
in any instance, yeah, he would not be able to move into that property. It's a prohibited transaction by the IRS, and those individuals would be considered disqualified parties. So just keep that in mind. When considering any of
Yep.
these investment opportunities, often our first instinct is to look for friends and family. If a friend and family has
What
an
we're all
opportunity.
told.
Yeah, right. So just be a little bit cautious of that
Yeah.
and what that looks like. And that said, those are the general disqualified parties. Again, always consult an attorney, always consult a CPA. There may be some additional rules, or the way that that deal is structured may allow for, certain activities that the IRS otherwise prohibits. And so, again, always seek some additional legal advice in that sense. But generally, the disqualified parties, those lineal ascendants and descendants.
Okay.
And then, you asked a little bit about kind of explaining this to an LP. So I kind of touched on it at the beginning. I'm the director of Syndication Solutions for NuView Trust. So my team helps the syndicator and the capital raiser to be their resource for any investors that want to use their retirement funds to invest in their deals. And so one of the questions that comes up all the time is, how do we explain this to our investors? Well, very simply, right? It's just like any other investment that you make through your self-directed retirement account, or through your retirement account, right? It's just outside of the stock market. And that's really the only difference. You have to do a little bit more due diligence. You have to be in contact with the sponsor. It's a little bit more hands-on as far as the investment process. But generally, we are a custodian. We're not a broker, but we're a custodian, and we function similar to a Charles Schwab Fidelity. We have an online platform. We have the ability for clients to trade and sell positions within that portal. A whole operations team to process investments, and whatever that looks like, we're very similar in that sense. We just custody alternative assets, and so by all means, it's a great way to get into an investment outside of the stock market that's passive, right? Because real estate, as much as people like to talk about all the great things that go into real estate and all of the fantastic returns, which there are, a lot of work goes into finding a good deal, acquiring that, adding value, and all of that obviously is best left to the operator and the person sponsoring the deal. And as a busy professional, why wouldn't you want to just find a good deal, sit back, collect your monthly dividends, and also your investment upon exit? It makes total sense.
Absolutely.
So in all reality, it's money that's sitting out there, not doing much for them right now in the way that the market is currently. Also, many people have stale 401ks, as you mentioned, whether they left a previous employer or they were terminated. And depending on circumstance, maybe they just forgot about it, or they rolled it over to, kind of fight the initial battle of just getting it somewhere, and then again forgot about it. Like you, I've talked to several individuals, even in the last week, that had hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in these retirement accounts doing nothing. Yep. I talked to a lady last week who had, some $250,000 in her account, was sitting there for 11 years doing nothing. 11 years. I mean, do you know how much money she missed out on in 11 years of not doing anything with it? So really just, kind of emphasizing that FOMO a little bit, right? And the fear of missing out on these new opportunities to diversify your portfolio into alternative asset classes that are, outperforming the stock market.
So I'm just doing some simple math here.
Yeah.
So $250,000. And one of our deals we just done back in November was a 2.85 multiple. So if she invested $250,000, and if you did times 2.85, that's $712,000. $712,000 from
money on the table.
So let's take out the initial investment of $250,000. That's $462,000 in gains. Just one cycle, and that property is only 5 years long. So if we did the exact same thing, she'd turn $250,000 into $1 million. And it's been sitting there for 11 years.
And look, we don't say that to, put blame or anything like that.
No.
What we do, right, by trade, we're educators.
Right.
What we do is bring awareness to the fact that you can invest in real estate, and you can do it through retirement accounts. You can grow your wealth and lower the burden of taxes at the same time. And,
so this brings up a great question. I don't want to miss this one. So I've also told people you can grow your wealth tax-free. Mm-hmm. So they said, well, if I'm getting mailbox money, how is that possible? Well, here's how. What we do is we tell you, okay, look, we're not going to physically send you money back to you as a person. We're going to repay your retirement account. So rather than you actually taking the money out, actually dispersing money from NuView Trust into you personally, continue to grow that wealth, just like a 401k. You're flipping it along. So every time we pay passively, can us as syndicate, me as an operator, can I pay NuView Trust those checks? And then it physically doesn't go to the actual person, so it don't get taxed?
Yeah, great question. So retirement accounts like individual IRAs, 401ks, and otherwise are some of the most incentivized and protected accounts that are offered, right, in our financial institution, our financial system in the United States, right? The government is incentivizes you for saving for your retirement by protecting those accounts so much. And so they do offer you the ability to, make capital gains tax free or tax deferred. Right. And so when investing in these deals, more specifically through a Roth IRA, absolutely any gains that you make within that account would be tax free. Because those distributions, like Eddie said, go right back to your IRA, are for the benefit of your retirement account. And again, not available until you reach 59 and a half and are actually able to start, receiving distributions without penalty. But yeah, absolutely. By all means, instead of taking it as, personal income and having that as, reportable income, it's tax free or tax deferred and sheltered within that retirement account until retirement age.
That is just so cool.
Yeah,
absolutely. So we explained the limited partnership. How can a syndicator work with you to raise more capital?
Yeah, sure thing. So, we kind of talked about it, touched on it a little bit, some of the examples that we pointed out. It's really just money on the table, not leaving money on the table, not only for the investor, but also the syndicator, the person raising capital. Especially in today's market, people are scared. It's getting harder and harder for people to part with their personal cash. That said, they have these retirement accounts that they can't necessarily take distributions from right now because they're well before retirement, and otherwise they would pay penalties and whatever that looks like. And again, those accounts are sitting there doing nothing for them. Even if they're in the stock market, they're making a 5% return, and that's not attractive to anybody. And so we're seeing more and more people use those funds to invest in these deals, invest passively and kind of grow their wealth, as opposed to their personal funds. And so for the syndicator, it's really just an extra arrow in their quiver as they're out raising capital. If they come across the objection like, hey, now's not a great time for us, we're kind of squirreling away some of our personal cash and the, waiting for the inevitable, crash of XYZ and whatever that looks like. And, but by all means, hey, do you have a retirement account? Do you have a previous employer 401k? What did you do with it? Oh, we rolled it over into Charles Schwab. It's been sitting there for 5 years. Oh, did you know you can use that to invest in my deal? No, tell me a little bit more about how that works. And then, we would kind of take over from there. And so that kind of brings up another good point. And, when raising capital, it's a great tool to have, right? An extra arrow in your quiver when out raising capital. But it's even more important to partner with a good IRA custodian like NuView Trust, and really form an alliance and a partnership like we have with Eddie and his team. Getting to know each other on a more personal level, but also on the deal level, really helps kind of streamline the process. And not only for the investor, but the syndicator as well. It's the syndicator's duty to go out, find deals, operate those deals, make money for themselves and their investors. And, while this is a great vehicle to invest in, that's not necessarily their job to sit there and explain how self-directed retirement accounts work and everything else. And so partnering with a custodian, that has the knowledge to take those investors through the process, explain what that looks like for them, the benefits to them, and then otherwise help them get through that process quickly and efficiently, will benefit your investor, and then also you, the syndicator, in your capital raising efforts. And so again, really just leaving money on the table if you're not asking, if people have those funds available to use, and also are not partnered with an IRA custodian.
That's so true. And, so I'm a fund manager and I'm all about the real estate funds. Now all of ours are 506C. I want to touch on that in a minute, on who's qualified to be in there, through your company. But, one of the reasons that I do real estate fund is because we raise capital by the masses. We, look at institutions, we look at family offices. We, of course, always are trying to get our retail investors through that, but it comes down to a capacity issue. So, I could go around to every one of these conferences and tell everybody about what we're doing, and that's a lot of time spent. and you may only raise $100,000 or $200,000, and that's great because that $100,000 or $200,000 is somebody that didn't know about my opportunity and knew about it and decided to invest. So those are the people I want to help. But I tell people all the time, especially syndicators in this hamster wheel, just doing the same thing over and over again. I say, what's the biggest capacity restraint you have? What is your operational lag? And every one of them, I'm always raising capital. So to partner with someone like NuView Trust, it makes it so much easier. And here's what I do. If I run across somebody that has a IRA and they want to get in real estate and they want to know those options, I'm not the expert on that. So I call Steve up and I say, Steve, I got a person that needs some education on this. Can he get in touch with you? And I hand that relationship over. Now, Steve's not necessarily giving him everything he needs to know to invest in my company. That's not what they do. What he does is educate them. He's not trying to sell them on my opportunity. What he's doing is educating the client so he knows exactly how it works, what he can expect, answer all the tax questions, things that you're an expert in. Now, when it rolls back to me and then he comes back and goes, man, Eddie, thank you so much. I talked to Steve. I am ready, man. Okay, well, let me know when you get your account set up, and you can do it right through NuView Trust, and then we'll take care of that for you. And then we start working hand in hand back and forth together to get that client's money in play. But then the client says, man, thank you so much for doing that for me. I had no idea. And Steve's an expert on this stuff. I said, yeah, absolutely. That's why I didn't try to tell you, because I'm not an expert on that. But what I am an expert on is what I do every day. And what we do every day as a daily practitioner, we get better and better at it. I am always striving to achieve perfection, knowing I'll never get there. That's fine, because if I ever achieve perfection, there's no reason to improve. So for me, I continue to operate a fund and operate deals. And when that customer or that client has a question on, Eddie, why do you like Dallas? I can tell him. Why do you like a Class C property? I can tell him. That is my field. That's my expertise. So it is so cool. And I would really push every syndicator and fund manager to make a good relationship with a person like Steve and a person with a good company that you can know, like, and trust, that you can send your clients to, because you don't need to be an expert in every area. And you shouldn't even try, because truth of the matter is you're probably going to tell them something they shouldn't. You could probably tell them, you could take your whole 401k and put it right in my fund. No, you can't. So
very well said, Eddie. And nobody is successful by trying to be the smartest guy in the room, right? It's identifying those people and what strengths they can bring to the table, and what you guys can do to add value to one another. And again, I think that our partnership works out great. We're very aligned in our story and what we offer, and really that service to others. And so very, very well said.
So let's talk about, all of my opportunities are 506C, so I can openly advertise them. I can put them on TV and put them on billboards, but that means they're only accredited investors that can go in my fund. Yep. So what does that look like? How does that work whenever a client is in your offering and they decide they want to invest into an opportunity that they found through NuView Trust, because we're partnered with you so they could see our offering? Mm-hmm. So what's that look like for the, say, the everyday person, non-accredited, and the accredited person?
Yeah, great. So just to kind of expand and kind of clarify the 506B, C, accredited, non-accredited, and kind of what that means. So the Jobs Act was passed in 2012. It's the Jumpstart Our Small Business Startup Act. It allowed for, different types of fundraising. The Regulation D was proposed and passed as part of that legislation. And within it, two subsections, the 506B, which allows you to raise capital from 35 non-accredited investors. Those are accredited investors. Sorry, let me back up and slow down. So you're able to raise from 35 non-accredited investors and an unlimited portion of accredited investors. To clarify what accredited and non-accredited is, an accredited investor is that investor that has a net worth of over $1 million, excluding their real estate portfolio, or has made, $250,000 a year for the last 2 years consecutively.
So it should be $1 million net worth, excluding your home.
Right.
It should be 250,000 for the last 2 years, singly $300,000 with a spouse,
Right.
and pretty solid, meaningful future that they're going to make that again that year. So 2 years in a row. And then also a step above for us is, so we do like Veravest. So that person actually needs to have their CPA send us a documentation or something saying that they are accredited. Usually that's another thing, is we seek a company that verifies accredited investors, because it's one more thing we got off our plate, and it's a third party. When the SEC comes to investigate us and they say, well, how did you know that Steve was an accredited investor? Well, hold on a minute. I'll give you the entire file that I got from Veravest. It's all right here. And I can email that packet over, and they go, okay, good. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so, kind of like you mentioned, or sorry, like you asked, how does that process work for our clients? Well, our clients are a good mix of, those non-accredited and accredited investors. And, like I mentioned, we're a passive custodian, so we don't sell investments. We don't necessarily endorse or push our clients in any particular direction. So obviously they have to qualify themselves, right? Who they have to know, their own financial situation and whether or not they qualify as an accredited or non-accredited investor. And then depending on, where they fall, that would determine what opportunity they are actually allowed to invest in. And then from there, it's just a matter of, like we talked about, getting connected with the sponsor, doing their due diligence. And once they've decided that they want to make this investment, and more specifically through their retirement account, then we would help them through the process of setting up that account, getting that account funded, and then getting those funds placed, in the investment opportunity that they've identified.
perfect.
So, yeah.
Would you like to iterate a little bit more about a non-accredited person?
Yeah, sure. So a non-accredited investor, or the sophisticated investor, is, typically that's that person that's, spent some time in the financial industry, does not meet the income requirements to be an accredited investor. Maybe they're a wealth manager, or somebody with a Series 6, 66, or whatever that looks like, and they're, educated and knowledgeable about investments and what they're doing. Really, with alternative assets, just because they're a little bit newer, they're outside of the stock market, they can be higher risk. That said, they can produce high rewards as well, but they are perceived by the IRS to be higher risk investments, since they want to make sure that you are able to absorb that risk, or at least are fully aware of the risk that you are taking when making those investments. And so,
Right.
the non-accredited investor, the sophisticated investor, is that person that knows more than the average person about these types of investments and investments, the financial system as a whole, but doesn't necessarily meet those income requirements.
Right. And another thing is, if we had a 506B inside your NuView Trust company, as a fund manager myself, we would need to build a relationship with that non-accredited person. You can't just take in a non-accredited person and take their money. So what we usually do is we formulate a relationship over several phone calls, more than one, more than two, and we educate them on the risk. We take them through the offering. I will run them through the rent roll. I will run them through the T12. I will educate them along the way, almost qualifying them as a sophisticated investor, in a sense, without the paperwork, just to say we built this relationship and they understand the risk. So you can't just, if we had a 506B offering inside NuView Trust, you just can't click the button and boom, you're investing money. You have to physically reach out to the sponsor or the fund manager to build that relationship, because the fund manager at that time, or syndicator, would be coming into some problems if there was a issue with that particular property. Is there anything else you would add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we really encompassed everything that is self-directed retirement accounts, both for the investor and then the capital raiser. Again, they're just they're powerful vehicles, allowing you to save for your retirement, diversify your portfolio, invest in what you know, and all tax-free and tax-deferred. And so, no, I mean, if anybody has any more questions, they can go to NuViewTrust.com. They can reach out to my team at syndication@NuViewTrust.com, or give us a call, 407-305-0675. Again, we're here to be the experts and the educators. So any questions that you do have them reach out. We also have a pretty extensive, YouTube library, blogs, newsletters on our LinkedIn, and so definitely check out our social media. There's a lot of information there about these retirement accounts, why you would use these accounts, how to set them up, and really everything in between. And so we're here to be that resource if they have any other additional questions. But no, otherwise, I think, again, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for having me on the podcast, and look forward to continuing our relationship.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for the time. And guys, if you need anything, contact NuView Trust, call up Steve, anybody on their team. They can help you tremendously. Hopefully this was great information for you guys, and I look forward to bringing out more content. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave some comments in this video. And don't forget to be extraordinary every single day and continue to educate yourself in the right direction to become a person that can live an extraordinary life. Thank you guys so much for the time.